Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katherine Staples and I'm the Regional Training and Implementation Manager for Oxford University Press. It is my pleasure to be here to give members of the Incorporated Society of Musicians an overview of Oxford Music Online, the home of Grove Music Online, the world's premier online music encyclopedia, which offers comprehensive coverage of music, musicians, music making and music scholarship. Whilst Wikipedia can be a good starting point, Grove Music Online is more rigorously edited by experts in the music field, and Grove offers you better functionality, such as the ability to search for composers or performers within a specific area at a specific date, time, or the ability to annotate the articles whilst you are reading them. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation using the chat feature. Any questions which are not answered during the session will be answered at the end and answers provided to you online. Before we begin properly, here are a few technical points. You can't see us, but you should be able to see the PowerPoint presentation displayed on your screen. You should also be able to hear me, but I can't hear you. If you experience any technical difficulties, such as sound or quality issues, please let us know in the question box and we'll make attempts to resolve the issue. If you have any questions for me related to the webinar subject, please type them in the questions box and we'll answer as many as possible at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on the ISM's website at ism.org/webinars. I thought it would be helpful to start with a brief bit of information about Oxford Music Online. It's the overall website for Grove Music Online, Oxford Dictionary of Music, and Oxford Companion of Music. It's the authoritative resource for music research, and you can search through 52,000 articles written by nearly 9,000 scholars, charting the diverse history and cultures of music around the globe. Grove Music Online is based on a work first published in 1879 and which has been updated frequently since. Grove, therefore, has been in continuous publication for over a century. Hundreds of new articles and article revisions are published every year. It is an essential tool for anyone interested in researching, teaching, or just learning more about music. It's been written and edited by nearly 9,000 subject experts and provides overviews of topics, extensive bibliographies with life information and works lists for composers, performers, and other important musical figures. There are more than 5,000 images, and there are links to audio and video. It is the perfect starting point for scholarly research, but with a clear and engaging writing style, Grove is easily accessible to amateur music lovers as well. Which texts are included? The online edition includes updated versions of previous Grove editions. Additionally, there are hundreds of specially commissioned articles. Titles also include the New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians, the New Grove Dictionary of Jazz, the New Grove Dictionary of Opera, the Norton Grove Dictionary of Women Composers, the Grove Dictionary of American Music, the Grove Dictionary of Musical Instruments. However, you cannot search those titles individually, but the information from those titles has been incorporated into Grove Music Online, and in one of the examples I'll show you where you can see a different type of article from one of those books that is available on Grove alongside other articles. Grove Music Online can be accessed through Oxford Music Online, www.oxfordmusiconline.com, or you can go directly to Grove Music Online. So all you need to do is add a /Grove Music. Grove Music Online is an easy to use online platform. You can do straightforward keyword searching, but then you can refine your search. There are online DOIs and URLs to link back to where you were, and there is a personal account function where you can save your search and articles that you have found interesting. I'd now like to do a demonstration of Grove Music Online. So I've now pulled up Grove Music Online. You will see from the home page, you can always return back to this home page by clicking on the link just at the top here where my mouse is, where it says Oxford Music Online, Grove Music Online. Clicking on that always takes you back to the home page. Once we get to the home page, you will see on the front there is a brief bit of information about Grove Music Online. The next thing you will see is some featured artists, composers, authors. There's information about updates, which you can have a look at. And then if you scroll down further, there is quite a useful link here called Subject Guides. If you click on this link here, it will take you into Grove Music and will pull up some information that you can find specifically for Grove Music. So it has pulled up here, topical guides to Grove Music. If you scroll down here, you can see there are lots of different topical guides. If you click on one of these, for example, classical, it will show you some information about classical music. So if you clicked on Essays, Classical, it gives you a summary of what classical music is and about, so that you can have a look at it. I'm not going to go into depth about this particular article because I'm going to explain the articles a bit further on. If we go back again, you will see the important centres that were for classical music, and you will see various genres, forms, concepts, biographies, composers, lots and lots of information about the classical music period. Other things that can be found under the topical guides are information about subject guides. So there's information about operas. There are also timelines as well, and I will show you those later. So now that we're back at the home page, I'm going to show you how to do a quick search on Grove Music Online. The particular author that I have chosen, or composer that I've chosen at the moment, is Stravinsky. So all I'm doing is using the box on the top right hand corner to look for Stravinsky. If you scroll down, you will see there are lots and lots of different information about Stravinsky, perhaps more information about Stravinsky than you would imagine. I'm going to click on Igor Stravinsky. You will see here you're being presented with some information about Stravinsky. If you look over on the left-hand side, you can quickly navigate between the various different bits of this particular article. And this is where Grove is really quite good, because you can navigate very quickly between the various bits of information that you're after, rather than having to scroll down really long web pages and then lose where you are on that web page. So if you wanted to have a look at this particular article, if you clicked on, there's a little arrow here which says Works. If you click on the little arrow, you can choose what type of work it is that you would like to have a look at. So I might say that I wanted to find out about Stravinsky's orchestral works, and you can see here a list of the orchestral works for Stravinsky, which tells you about the scoring, when it was composed, when it was first performed, and the information about the publication of it. If you scroll down, see there's lots and lots of information there about Stravinsky's orchestral works. You might also want to go and have a look at the bibliography to find some more information about Stravinsky. And you can see here there are lots of things. So there's a whole load of information about correspondence and where that correspondence can be found. There's information about catalogues and bibliographies, and also about life works. I'm just scrolling down to the bottom of this page a moment, so forgive the fast moving screen. What I wanted to show you is this box at the bottom, because this, remember I said that Grove was made up with multiple books as well as the Grove Music Online. If you look at this here, you will see that there is information about Igor Stravinsky in the American National Biography Online, and there's also information in there from Oxford Music Online. And where it says brackets opera, this is actually where it comes from, the New Grove Dictionary of Opera. So that is how you would find out whether the article that you were looking for came from Grove's or came from one of the other books that's been incorporated into Grove's. If we go back to the top of this particular article, we'll go right up to the top here. You'll notice here there's a Doi link. This is really useful because it means that you can link back to this particular article. You'll also notice when it was published in print and when it was published online, and you'll see that there's not very much difference with this particular article, but sometimes things are published online before they were published in print. And you'll be able to note this here, which is quite useful if you're doing research. You'll also note who actually wrote this information. This also pulls up, this is the information about the article. If there are images or videos, if you click on here, there will be different tabs along the top, and you can see here any images that are associated with this article. So here is a picture of Stravinsky and his wife Katya with a few other people as well. So that's quite useful, particularly if you wanted to have a look at some illustrations that were connected with the particular person that you were looking for. Over at the top here are some other navigation buttons. If you click on the PDF button, this actually pulls up the article that we've been looking at and puts it into PDF format for you. PDF's obviously not loading right now, so we'll go back to it, but oh, here we go. It pulls it into the PDF for you, and it shows you really nicely the actual article that you were looking at, and the background, the early years, which makes it something really nice that you can print out and go back to and have a look at another point in time. It also means that you could actually save this article as a PDF document to your own computer if you wanted to. If we go back to where we were, the other options here are to save it. There's also a cite option. This is really helpful because what it does is gives you a citation for this article. Really great if you're doing research because it actually gives you the citation reference that you need to put in your references. And you can put the citation into whichever format it is that you're referencing in. You can also export the citation and put it into a reference management software of your own choice, and you'll see the different options for this here. Moving over, there's the option to email this. You can email this to yourself. If you email it to somebody else, or if you share, there's an option here to share via social media, the person will be linked to this article, but unless they have a subscription to Grove Music Online, they won't actually be able to view the article. However, if you're working with somebody else who happens to subscribe to this, or another member of ISM, then they can log in with their username and password and get full access to this article immediately. The final thing I want to show you on this particular article is how you might annotate this particular article. So you'll notice here something is highlighted in yellow. This is an annotation that I have done already. To annotate, hold down and select the bits that you want to annotate. So I might want to just do this. And can you see there's a little pin that comes up that says annotate? If I click on annotate, this means the actual text that I've selected has been selected, and I can write myself some information here about Stravinsky. So I might put mother, father, just a few keywords for myself so that it knows that I was, so I know what it is that I'm looking for. If I then click save, it's automatically saved that annotation into my personal profile, and I'm going to explain personal profiles a bit later on. But you can see here are my two links. I could delete it, I could edit it, but this is my citation for me, and it's been highlighted in yellow so that you know that when you come back to this and log into your personal profile, this is the bit that you've saved. Just going to scroll to the top again. I'm going to do a new search now on a different composer. So I'm going to do a search now on John Cage. Just need to wait a moment for the web page to load. One thing to point out, this has searched Grove Music Online, but if you click on the link here that I've just highlighted, it will search John Cage in the Oxford Dictionary of Music and the other Dictionary of Music. So you can see that there are less results here from the Oxford Dictionary of Music and the Oxford Companion to Music than there are actually in Grove Online. This is really useful though if you only wanted to search the Oxford Dictionary of Music or the Oxford Companion to Music. If we go back again, we just click on this link and it goes back and searches in Grove Music Online. So for this search, what I wanted to show you is that this search has been sorted by relevance. However, this might not be what you're after, and if you click on the up and down arrows, you can actually search using various other options. So you could search by title, by author or editor, and you can also search by date. So it might be the print date or the online date. So although this has come back with relevance and this is what it's defaulted to, you can change that option yourself quite quickly by changing the option here and then clicking go. Also notice the numbers here, so you can browse very quickly between the different pages that have been coming up. What I want to show you now are the options here on the left-hand side. So there are options here for articles to do with John Cage or images. If I selected images and click update, it's going to pull out now all the articles that have images of John Cage. So if you scroll down, you can see all the images that are in Groves. And notice it's not just photos, there's also images of graphic notation, and you'll find this throughout Groves. There's quite often little bits of scores or interpretations that have been added to make it a more interactive resource. I'm just going back again. So I've gone back to all the search that I had done a minute ago. The next option down here, if you look, there is options to do with type. So you could choose the type of article that you're looking for, be it a biographical article or a reference article. There's also information about Placetype. I'm going to come back to that in a bit. And life event, I will also come back to that with another search because I want to show you how that works. There's also, you can search within John Cage for information to do with topics, to do with instruments. And note here, this isn't perhaps the instruments that you might expect, but if you click on the arrow here, you can then choose the particular instrument that you're after. So if you wanted to look for something to do with trumpets, obviously select aerophones and then narrow it down to trumpets. For stringed instruments, you could pick up bowed or plucked, and then it narrows it down to violin or double bass. Moving further down, you can also select your era. So although I have searched for John Cage, there was obviously information to do with a John Cage, or certainly to do with somebody called Cage, in some of the older works available, although you'll see that most of the work is to do with the 20th and 21st century, as you would expect. There's also information here to do with regions and countries. And there's also information to do with John Cage, because you may well have been a librarian or a music educator, as well as the composer that we were expecting. And here we go, this is where most of the articles are from. You can see from the brackets at the side, the brackets with the number, this is however many articles there are to do with John Cage as a composer or arranger. Carrying on scrolling down, you can also choose the particular date. And if you look at the options here, you can choose from the date published online or published in print. So if you're after an article which you know was published in a particular time period, you can actually use the date options here to actually narrow your search down to find that particular article. And finally, at the bottom, you'll notice some information about availability. All the articles in Groves, because ISM has subscribed to it, should be available or free, and you shouldn't come across any restricted articles. So having looked at the search options, let's go back to the top and look at the browse options. So we've used this search bar at the top here. Now I want to have a look at the browse options, which are you can use using these topic, instrument, era, region, place type and occupation buttons along the top here. So if you click on any of these, it shows you the options that are available underneath. Okay, so if I go back to the home page a minute, this is just to clear the John Cage search. If I do topic and I look at, say, music and medicine, it brings you articles that are related to music and medicine. So there's information about brains and computer music, and there's only 2 articles here. So if we just scroll down, the other one is to do for the Centre of Music Research. The next one that you might want to look at is instrument, and this goes back to what I was saying about aerophones and corporeal techniques. If you are looking for a specific instrument, for example, flute, you might well find it easier to type flute into the search box at the side and click go or enter, rather than trying to scroll and navigate your way through aerophones in the first instance. So here we go, an article here to do with information about flutes. There's also information about eras. This can be really useful if you're looking for a particular era. Also to do with regions. I'm going to explain this one a bit more shortly. Place type. And this one can be quite useful as well. As I said, the majority of information is to do with composers or musicians, but there's also information in here about performers or donors, and that can be quite useful because in the past, obviously, composers had donors or patrons, so it can be useful to search on the people that have been sponsored by that particular donor or patron. If we go back to region, as I said I would in a moment, if you selected, so let's just clear the flute a minute. back to the beginning. If we go region and Europe, you can see that there are a lot of results that have come up. If you scroll further down on this left-hand side, where it says region, you'll see there's a tick in the region box for Europe. If you then click on the arrow, you can then navigate further down. Say you wanted to look at Central Europe and then choose Germany. If you put a tick in that box and then click on update, it will bring up all the information that is linked to Germany. So you can see here that I've updated that information. You've got Europe, Germany, and all the information. You'll see the number of results hasn't changed, and that's because Europe has been selected. If we put a tick in that box there and get rid of Europe, the results will narrow down to everything that's to do with Germany. And you can see here the number of results has dropped down, so this is just everything to do with Germany. The final way of searching is by browsing all. So if you were looking, and this might be the sort of thing that you want to do, you might well be looking for composers who were born in Ghana in West Africa between 1900 and 1950. You can use if you go to topic and click on browse all, it will bring up all the articles that are available in Grove Music. And you can then use the buttons down the left-hand side to find what you're after. So if I scroll down here, I've brought up everything and I'm going to look for life event. I said I would come back to this one. I'm going to choose birth because I'm looking for composers or performers who were born between 1900 to 1950. And I'm going to click on update. So this has narrowed my search down from everything in Groves to people who were born between 1900 and 1950. If I then browse again down the left-hand side, we can see here's Africa, West Africa, and there's Ghana here. And if I just scroll down a little bit and click on the update button, there are 11 people who were born in Ghana between 1900 and 1950. So we can have a look here at the type of things that are coming up. And this is really useful if you're trying to browse for a new era of music and find authors or performers or composers from that particular era and you don't know who they are. So this is the way you can browse to find that information out. And I think that's really useful for any researcher or teacher who needs to find that information out. And obviously, once we've got to this particular list, if we wanted to look at Melanie Dakin, if we clicked on her name, it goes back to where we were, like with Stravinsky, although for Melanie Dakin, the information to do with her is much less. But you can see she was an English composer and lecturer, studied composition and piano at the Royal Academy of Music, at the University of Ghana and the Paris Conservatoire. And usefully, it also tells you who she was a pupil of, so you can follow the links through that way as well. You can see that she's written some operas, some orchestral music, and there's information here about her bibliography. So that's the search that I wanted to show you about Grove Music Online. I'd just like to point out a few helpful links in our support bar. This is the bar along the top here, where it says about, tools and resources, subscribe, customer services, and you'll see my name at the top. This is my personal profile, which I'll show to you so you can see what's in there. I might decide that I want to add information about Melanie Dakin to my personal profile. If you notice, I've just hovered over the little computer disk icon, and I've obviously already saved information about her because the only option I've got there is to remove the saved content. But if you wanted to save content about somebody, by clicking on here, it would add it automatically to your profile. So let's just have a look at these tools along the top here. In the About button, this tells you information about Grove Music Online, history of Grove Music Online, author resources. There's lots and lots of information there, so you can find out a little bit more about Grove Music Online. Back up to the support bar, next is the news section. This is where you can go to find out what new titles have been added and when they were added. So there's a what's new in November. If we clicked on that, there's 4 new articles, and you'll notice one of them is Fanny Hensel. She's the person who's on the front of the Grove Music Online webpage, and that's because her article is new, so they wanted to draw attention to that and put it at the front. And there's also information about other things that have been added, and you can scroll through the dates at the side to see when articles were added. Next is our Tools and Resources bar. So this is quite useful. There's lots of information that you can see. If I just scroll down slowly, subject guides, Grove Music Online's user manual, customer services and help. Note there's a kind of frequently asked questions section, so it might be worth having a look at this page if there's something that you're trying to do and you can't work out how to do it. It might be worth having a quick look at this page to find out if your question has already been answered under the frequently asked questions. If we go back to the subject guides and research resources, I mentioned earlier there are Grove Opera indexes. This is a really useful tool to help somebody who's looking for the name of an opera, but you don't have much information about it. So if I click on the opera indexes, if you know what the first line of the aria is that you're after, you can have a look at it. There's also an index of opera rolls, and there's also an index of operas under composers. So if I clicked on the index of operas under composers, say I wanted to look for something by Mozart, if I clicked on M and then scrolled down to find Mozart, if I wanted to look for the Magic Flute, I can scroll down and you can see here there's information about the names of the people in the opera and what their title is, their job description in the opera is, and you can see what role is played by that person and what kind of voice it is that is needed. If you scroll down, it also tells you information about the Magic Flute and goes into quite a lot of detail about the Magic Flute, which is really helpful. Just going back to where we were a moment ago. So you can see this is how you can find operas, which is quite useful. The other thing I wanted to point out to you are these timelines. So these are quite useful because you can have a timeline, a historical timeline between operatic premieres, contemporary music. Let's have a look at the one of women in music. And you can look that the timeline has been set up since 1810, and it pulls out key women in music all the way through. Scrolling down, we'll get to the 1900s. So we've got 1919, 1928, all the way through to 2000. So there's lots of information there, and if you want to read more or find out more, you can click on the link. I think these are really quite useful for timelines for specific things. So women in music, contemporary music, that's really quite useful, and the operatic premieres, that's quite useful as well. So this is all under tools and resources on this link at the top. I'll skip over the customer services bar for a moment because I wanted to show the personal profile. So you can see my name, Katherine Staple, at the top. This means I've logged into my profile. Anybody can create a profile. It's absolutely free to do. Once you've logged in with your ISM username and password, you can create your own profile, which the next time you go in and log into your profile will have all the information that you've saved in that profile. And that can be set up with your own email address and password. So it's not connected to ISM at all, it's just your personal profile. So you can see here, these are the searches that I've done recently. So I did the Ghana search a couple of days ago, and if I clicked on this link, it would rerun the search that I have just done, looking for composers in Ghana that were born between 1900 and 1950. If you look under saved annotations, the two annotations that I've done should be in my personal profile. For some reason they vanished, but if you remember, I did put some information into my personal profile from Stravinsky, so I should have two annotations in here that I can then have a look at. So this is where you create your personal profile, and the final option is to edit your details should you wish to. There's a good way of saving information and coming back to it. Finally, the customer services link is where you can go to contact Oxford University Press, who are the suppliers of Oxford Music Online. You can access technical support if you need some help. If you've got problems accessing the website and you can't speak to somebody at ISM, then you can have a look on the frequently asked questions and the technical support page. There's also other information down here. So there's quite a lot of useful information here. If you click over here where it says for librarians, there is lots of information under in-library support about Grove Music Online, and there's another brief tutorial here about Grove Music Online. So if you can't get access to the webinar that I've just done now, you can have a look this way. So if you go to the Librarian Resources Centre, if you click on Learn about your resources, Training Tools, you'll see all the products that Oxford University Press offer, and if you scroll down you will be able to find Oxford Music Online. If you click on that, you'll see there's a quick quiz which you could test yourself with. There's a video, there's a user guide, and there's a product tour. If you clicked on the product tour, this takes you to a video which shows you how to use Grove Music Online. So that's another way of finding out some useful information. So what I have done for my final slide having given you a demonstration, I've put some further help slides on here. This is just to help you find particular things quickly. So timelines for opera, women in music and contemporary music. If you clicked on this link, it would take you automatically there. The topical guides that I mentioned for specific time periods, information about customer services, and some frequently asked questions. There's also some demonstrations and quizzes that you can have a look at. Okay, we're going to have a look now to see if there are any questions. Okay, so we had a question about signing in. So if I just go back to Grove Music Online, there was a question about signing in. I'm assuming you all have a username and password, and I think if you don't, this is something you can get from ISM. So I have signed in as if I am the Incorporated Society of Musicians. So when you come to sign into this site, all you need to do is log in over here on the left-hand side. Remember, if you try and sign in up here, you're signing into your personal profile, not getting into the Grove Music Online and the Music Online. So hopefully, Christopher, that's answered your question as to how you sign in and sign out of Oxford Music Online. Are there any more questions? If anybody thinks of anything that they would like to ask, I am very happy to take questions after the session. You can contact me directly, katherine.staples@oup.com, or you can get in touch with ISM and they will forward any questions on to me. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.